Another trade recap of yesterday, and I missed out on a long because I was quite patient, but maybe a little bit too patient. Let's start on the higher time frame. Price created a high, dropped, and then climbed up again, creating multiple changes in the state of delivery. First at this level, then this level, etc., etc. And for me, it was quite clear, seeing the momentum it had, higher highs, higher lows, that this 1 hour gap, or at least this buy side liquidity, would be next target. So if we just zoom in, what happened, let's take the 15. What happened in the overnight session? Asia went quite up, took out yesterday's high, or the day before. London did exactly the same, sold off. This was quite a nice short, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I can show it in a bit. And what would I like to see for the US session? There were actually two red folder news at 8:15 and 8:30, and then also at 10 o'clock. 8:30 was quite important. It was the what was it? The unemployment claims, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, that was 10 o'clock. So I would take that into account with my trading. But if I want to see the blue as a draw on liquidity, most likely it would take out first London and Asia low, and maybe even, but that would be like a stretch. If the data from the red folder news would be worse than expected, then it might flip bias and go to the London and Asia low of the day before, which would coincide with these two levels, and only Asia low for ES was not taken yet. Let's see, because what happened, let's go to the 5 minutes. So the first red folder news was 8:15, and if I'm not mistaken, that was not really okay. So yeah, okay, so then it moves really fast. Okay, so there was a data high here, price sold off. I think the data was a bit worse than expected, which was okay. And then 8:30 there was another news, which I think was nothing special. But I could see that price was gravitating to the downside. So my idea was, okay, let's just take out these levels, because they will. So my idea was, okay, most likely we'll take out London, maybe Asia as well. And then of course it's the question, what is ES doing? Because ES was already showing more bullish price action than MNQ over the last days and weeks. Let's see if we can just slow it down a bit, because I was going really fast. So I was just watching and not really doing much, because by now it was 9:20, so US would open as well. And I think this would be a really good draw on liquidity, especially taking into account that London high was also there. So let's just mark out this level as well. I'm not going to label it, but that's, let's say, the London high. Having these levels so close together, especially with the blue line, creating liquidity, especially also for ES is doing the same, just creating all this liquidity to the downside. So what you then want to see is a key level being taken out. Okay, yeah, so what happened here is, and this is what I noticed, normally you would expect a manipulation in the opposite direction and then moving in favor of the draw. But what it then now does is that it takes out that the key level first, not going to, let's say, the high time frame draw, but just take the internal high, take it out, and then still move in the opposite direction. So for me, this was, I think there was no trade. No, there was no trade for me. Even though there was a small bullish SMT here, so this was a higher high for ES versus NQ, but there was nothing really to trade off of. So I was just watching, and then I'm just watching price action to see what it's doing, to see if there's any sensible level to potentially take a trade from. But there wasn't, so I was just watching price, and now I'm just also taking into account that at 10 o'clock there is the ISM manufacturing PMI, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm just watching, not doing anything much, because I still think that if you want to see a final move up, it should take out liquidity. And what do I mean? It should at least take out this low, and preferably for ES take out these relative equal lows, because the market needs liquidity, and all these intermediate bullish or bearish SMTs, I don't work with them because that's just my personal preference in this high volatility context. I'm not at my best because there are so many potential trades that I tend to get analysis paralysis. So I just know for myself, and what works for me is I want to see key levels getting taken because that provides me with more clarity on where the market wants to go. So I wait. And then I think we're almost there, 10 o'clock. And I think the news in itself was a nothing burger, just as expected. So here I'm just more lows being printed. And here, yes, there could be an SMT. And now it gets interesting, right? So now London low is taken. And now we have a higher time frame SMT because ES is not anywhere near the London, but I do think that what normally happens is that NQ drops, it's the first to drop, then ES lags, and then NQ is the first to move up again, and then ES lags again, but then on the upside, to the upside. So, okay, so now NQ has taken out both levels. It's getting interesting, but I'm not really keen yet on taking a trade because ES is really close to London, and yes, it did take out these levels. So for me, if the setup would be presented, I would be willing to take it, but I do know that if London low gets taken, the probability for a reversal, especially in favor of the draw, is much higher. So I was just watching, and I think what I do now, I don't think, but I know, is that with these lows in place, my experience is that generally if you can find a gap in this move down that coincides with providing support for these lows, the level holds more meaning. And what I saw in the M2 is that a gap was created. So this is the gap I'm watching now. So I want to see, okay, now it gets mitigated. So it still means that we can move down, because when the gap is mitigated, it can also act as resistance. I don't trade it. But seeing where ES is, I think it's very reasonable to assume that ES will still take out London low. But what I mean is the relevance of a level is that you can see this as a support being built. And the support, so let's make it greenish. And the moment it gets broken to the downside, especially when it's a rather violent or a drop with conviction, this gap gets created, and if you pull it to the left and it provides support, if it gets broken to the upside again, then for me it has a higher probability chance of providing, so to say, support in the opposite direction. Because what you then more or less get is that you get accumulation or support, then you get a manipulation to the downside, and then you can get expansion to the upside. So this is classic AMD or power of 3. And I try to find signs when the PA is not really transparent or very, very clear, to still find and see that manipulative move. Because here on ES it's not that clear. Okay, I can mark out this gap which coincides with this gap, and then I can see, oh yeah, actually here there's quite some support, but this gap is quite large for ES, so this is 4 points almost. And on NQ this level is much cleaner, much more apparent. So now I mark this out, I consider this to be a relative level, and then I also build the thesis of a trade where I say to myself, okay, if this gets broken to the upside and I get a good break and the PA within this gap is clean, not too messy, not too choppy, then I buy the retest and then I trade it long with a stop either under the gap or under a wick if the wick is at a, let's say, sensible level. So let's see what happens. It trades above, so then I only wait for the close, right? So I have my order ready. So what I do is I place my order already here. I mark it at this level, so the price was then here, but this for me is too wide of a stop, so I place it a few points below, and then I target a 2R minimum. So that would be more or less here. I place my order and I have my finger at the button to click once it closes, but then it dropped off in the last 20 seconds. So for me this is now a level which can still hold, but is losing a bit of relevance. And this is also because the gap and ES was quite large. So let's make this, still need to take out the M5. So here it provided resistance. So this for me was the sign, okay, actually ES is not done yet. So it's providing resistance, so most likely it will take out London. And then it's interesting to see what NQ will do, because ideally you want to see NQ print a higher low, because if you get an SMT on a higher time frame but also an SMT on the lower time frame, it just builds confidence for a reversal. But in all honesty, the higher time frame is more important than the lower time frame, so it's not a requirement for a good setup. So okay, so the next 2 minutes we get this candle. And it's clear that it took out London, and now I wait, because now I have the target, so liquidity is taken, but Asia low is still relatively close by, but it doesn't need to take it out. So we get the sweep on NQ, and the question is, how well will it respond? Sometimes you get an immediate response, but here it took a few candles to close above London low again. So I'm watching and I'm thinking, okay, so this 1 minute doesn't really have a gap. And this is, I think, where I went wrong, because I looked at the 2 minute and I saw this 2 minute evolve. And with this 2 minute, I thought, okay, it's quite overlapping with the earlier 2 minute. So what I will do is I will not change my opinion. I will wait for, because I was watching NQ, I will wait for this M2, the higher 2 minute gap, to be broken to the upside to trade it long, because there's still plenty of opportunity, plenty of RR to make a good trade. So I actually thought, okay, I see this gap, but I'm actually going to ignore it. I think that's where I made a mistake. But that's only in hindsight, right? So what happens? ES also has this gap, which is quite far away. So there was how to say it? The PA was a bit more stretched out in this last 25 minutes of PA. For NQ it was quite condensed, and here ES did quite a good clear close above that 2 minute level. And while NQ didn't do it, ES already showed, hey, okay, I got my liquidity now, and I'm showing you good reaction off of it, and now I'm going to take out, or at least I'm going to try to take out the next M2 level. Okay, so this is where I felt a bit anxious, because two things happened. First of all, the M2, even though this candle, ideally, you would like to see it close above. Why? Because then you have a beautiful BPR, a balanced price range, where you have a inverse gap being followed by a bullish gap with the same size. And when you have those two gaps, then let's say you have a really high probability that that will act as support. So that's almost a certain long in this situation, a certain long. And then what I would do is I would trade the retest of the IFVG and then trade it long. But because I decided not to do it when this gap formed to the downside, I ignored this level and I thought I wait for the M2 to trade to close above and then trade the retest. So just to show you that this is already a 2-hour trade. So the retest of this small gap with a stop below, because this is too wide of a stop for me. Maybe I would place it a little bit down to give some space for this bullish gap, because you want to see bullish gaps hold, because generally the bullish gaps can give a retest and they can wick through it, but they should hold. If they hold, then it's definitely a good level to trade from. But as they can wick below, as long as they close within or above, you're good to go. Let's say then the reversal builds more probability. But this would have been a really quick 2R. But as I said, I didn't do it. I waited for this level to take out. So I have my order ready. This one closed well above. I placed my long here, my stop below here. I think I placed it here just to give it some extra leeway. But now I don't want price to come back to this gap, because that would more or less invalidate almost the M2 gap, and it would invalidate this M2 gap. So you want to see continued momentum. I place my stop 2R, and I look at the right if to see if that's a good level. Okay, just below this wick, for me this is a good trade. So I place my stop, and what happens is it moves up, and now I feel a little bit of FOMO, because I think, hey, damn it, I think I missed this one already, but I know that many times it just violently reverses as well. ES gave a perfect retest, so that would have been a really good trade as well. But okay, sometimes I was focused on NQ. I think I moved my entry a little bit above to make sure that I don't get too greedy, but I also don't be too, I'm not going to be too conservative. And the next candle did give a reversal, and I think this was good placement, because I missed it by one tick, and then just price went off, and it went completely higher. And by now I feel so much FOMO that I don't want to chase it anymore. But for me it was clear. This high is now the draw on liquidity, and ES was already paving the way. So you could see that ES was already moving way higher. And for me, this is an easy target. And I think that even though it dropped and consolidated a bit, for me this is already not interesting to trade anymore, because this is his chop. And if you're in a trade, that's okay. But if you want to make a trade from it, this is, yeah, as you can see, this is not my thing to trade. And price went up to the blue level. So this is a potentially a perfect trade. So the only mistake that I made was choosing to ignore this level, while it's actually quite relevant. Also seeing the price action, and what I said, the more spread out price action on ES versus NQ, and the fact that price already mitigated this level, which made it have less relevance, not no relevance. And after that, it was just me following my model, and that means I'm not going to chase price and enter here. Because my data shows that 9 out of 10 I can just wait for a retest, and it means that my RR will definitely improve. But okay, I missed this one, so next time I will take into account, hey, if we create this level and ES is showing favorable price action as well, then it's smart not to ignore such a level. So much to learn.